My wife stole what she thought was an $87 winning lottery ticket during my mother's cancer battle. She divorced me, slept with my boss, and ruined my life. Then, the State Lottery Commission called a press conference. Chapter 1. The Before Times Our Perfect Mediocre Marriage. My name is Alex Thompson. I am 32 years old. Well, 33 now, having aged approximately a century during this absolute fucking nightmare. I'm not a complicated guy. I grew up in a rusted-out post-industrial Midwest town where the high school football coach was the town deity and the local factory was the only career path. I wanted out. I worked my ass off, pulling double shifts at a diner to put myself through a no-name community college, and eventually clawed my way into a corporate sales position at Technova Solutions. I wasn't rich, but I was stable. Then in the summer of 2016, I met Karen. I'm withholding her real name for legal reasons, but let's be honest. Karen isn't just a pseudonym here, it's a spiritual diagnosis. She completely embodied the meme before it even had a name. We met at a mutual friend's backyard barbecue. She was 25, a whirlwind of blonde hair, cheap perfume, and exhausting, manic energy. She had big, delusional dreams of becoming a full-time lifestyle influencer. Back then, blind to the red flags, I mistook her superficial vanity for ambition. I was completely smitten by her spark. We dated for 3 years. Looking back, the cracks were always there. Every date was a photo op. Every meal had to be photographed before I was allowed to touch a fork. If the lighting was bad, her mood was ruined for the night. But I stayed, convinced that this was just 20-something quirkiness. In 2019, we got married. It was a budget ceremony because my savings were modest and her credit cards were already maxed out. We had cheap string lights strung across a rented VFW hall, a playlist run off an old iPhone, and a cash bar that infuriated her family. She complained about that cash bar for the first 6 months of our marriage, claiming it ruined her brand identity for the photos she posted online. On paper, our marriage was fine, if you consider an emotional desert fine. I was the designated adult. I handled the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, and her constant skyrocketing demands for content creation upgrades. I bought her the ring lights, the high-end microphones, the DSLR cameras, and the designer clothes she would wear once with the tags tucked in, only to return them the next day. Meanwhile, she posted daily, breathless screeds about hustle culture, girl boss energy, and building an empire. The reality of her empire. She contributed maybe $800 a month from sporadic, sketchy sponsorships, mostly detox fitness teas that gave her severe stomach issues and made our single bathroom a biohazard zone for days at a time. Our sex life was a chore. It was routine, clinical, and strictly scheduled. Missionary on Friday nights, lights completely off, no variance, no adventure, no passion. It felt like filling out a tax form. And immediately afterward, she would stare at the ceiling and complain that we weren't manifesting abundance, or that my low vibrational energy was holding her back from reaching her true financial potential. I just laugh it off, roll over, and try to get some sleep before my 5:00 a.m. alarm. I thought that was just what long-term relationships became. I was an idiot. Then came 2022, and the universe decided to break me. My mother, Linda Thompson, the woman who raised me solo on a secretary's salary, was diagnosed with stage 3 triple-negative breast cancer. The news hit me like a physical blow. The subsequent years became a blur of burning chemo, exhausting radiation, and invasive surgeries. Because I was an only child, the entire weight of her care fell squarely on my shoulders. My life became a relentless, grueling gauntlet. I spent my nights sleeping on a cracked vinyl chair in the oncology ward, listening to the rhythmic, terrifying hum of medical monitors. I drove her to early morning appointments before my shift started, watched her beautiful hair fall out in clumps, and maxed out one credit card after another to pay for the experimental therapeutics her insurance deemed not medically necessary. How did my loving wife support me through this living hell? By exploiting it. Karen immediately smelled digital currency in my mother's tragedy. She started posting vague, soft-focused Instagram stories featuring her looking somberly out a window, captioned with lengthy, self-pitying paragraphs about the heavy burden of being a caregiver's wife and navigating the dark valleys of a partner's trauma. She was fishing for likes and engagement off my mother's mortality. But when it came to actual physical help, forget it. She openly despised the hospital. "The smell of bleach and sickness ruins my aura, Alex," she told me with a straight face. So while I was upstairs holding a barf basin for my vomiting, delirious mother, Karen would sit in our leased SUV in the parking lot, blasting the AC, filming TikTok transitions, and complaining that I was taking too long. Meanwhile, my day job at Technova Solutions was grinding my soul into dust. I was logging 55 to 65 hours a week, cold calling hundreds of leads, swallowing my pride, and closing massive deals to keep our heads above water. My direct supervisor was Mark Harrington, though everyone in the office called him Chad. Chad was 45 years old, had slick-back hair that looked permanently wet, a constant year-round golf tan, and wore shirts with collars so stiff they looked like they could slice paper. He was a textbook corporate sociopath, but he held the keys to my salvation. For months, Chad had been dangling a massive carrot in front of my nose, the upcoming regional director promotion. "You're a shark, Thompson," he'd say, slapping my back with a manicured hand while reeking of expensive scotch. "Just keep grinding. The slot is yours." The promotion carried a $250,000 base salary, with commissions easily pushing the total compensation past $400,000, along with massive stock options and a premium, corporate-tier health plan that would fully cover every single cent of my mother's escalating cancer treatments. I was so close I could taste it. I was killing myself for that title. One night, bone-tired and smelling of hospital cafeteria coffee, I crawled into bed and pulled Karen close. "Babe, just bear with me for one more year," I whispered, my voice cracking from sheer exhaustion. "If I land this regional director spot, we are set for life. The stress stops. The debt goes away. We can finally breathe." She didn't even look up from her phone screen, her face illuminated by the cold, blue light of her feed. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "Then manifest it faster, Alex. Honestly, your broke boy mindset is literally dragging down my algorithms." Chapter 2: The Fateful Night and the Fake Ticket. June 2024. A night that will be burned into my retinas until the day I die. It had been a genuinely brutal, soul-crushing day. I had just lost a massive legacy client to a competitor because Chad had delayed approving a discount bottleneck. Worse, my mother's oncologist had just pulled me into a private room to show me her latest PET scans. The cancer had metastasized. There were new, aggressive spots on her lungs. I couldn't face the quiet, resentful vacuum of my home, and I couldn't bear to look at my mother's frail face again without breaking down. So, for the first time in years, I went to a bar. I chose the Rusty Nail, a dark, smoke-stained dive bar on the edge of town. It had dim, flickering neon lights, sticky floors that glued your shoes to the linoleum, and a jukebox that played depressing, old-school country music on a loop. I sat in a booth in the back, nursing a cheap, burning whiskey, staring blankly at the wall, wondering how the hell I was going to survive the next month. That's when he appeared. He was a sketchy, loud-mouthed dude wearing a faded, loud Hawaiian shirt, a thick fake gold chain cutting into his neck, and a massive beer gut that pushed against the bar counter. Let's call him Slick Rick. He was clearly 3 sheets to the wind and looking for an audience. He slid into my booth uninvited, smelling aggressively of stale cigars and cheap cologne. "Hey, pal," Rick barked, slamming a heavy hand on the table. "You look like someone just shot your dog. Life's a fucking gamble, man. Tell you what, I'll bet you $50 right now you can't guess my lucky numbers." I was drunk, numb, and entirely out of dams to give. "Go away, man," I muttered. But he wouldn't budge. He kept pestering, laughing loudly, throwing out ridiculous riddles, to get him to shut the fuck up. I played along for a second and threw out a random string of numbers, based on my mom's birthday and some random digits. Rick's eyes went wide. He let out a loud, theatrical gasp, reaching into his breast pocket. "No fucking way, you're a psychic, kid." With a dramatic flourish, he slammed a pristine-looking lottery ticket right onto the sticky table between us. It was a multi-state mega jackpot ticket. I stared at it. It looked incredibly authentic. It had the official thermal paper texture, a perfectly reflective holographic security seal on the border, an official watermark that caught the bar's dim neon lights, and a flawless scannable barcode at the bottom. The numbers printed across the front were 7, 14, 22, 35, 41, and the mega ball was 18. "This bad boy won the $87 million jackpot last week," Slick Rick roared, laughing like a manic hyena. "Take it, kid. Seriously, take it. Change your fucking life. I got plenty more where that came from." Before I could even process what he was saying or give him his $50, the guy slid out of the booth, cackling wildly, and vanished out the front door into the dark, humid night. I sat there holding the piece of paper. I knew, logically, it had to be a prank, a high-end prop, or some kind of elaborate scam, but my alcohol-soaked brain found it mildly amusing. I stumbled through our front door at exactly 1:37 a.m. The house was dead quiet except for the low hum of the television. Karen was sprawled out on the couch, her face bathed in the glow of her phone as she scrolled mindlessly through TikTok. She didn't even look up to see if I was okay or why I reeked of whiskey. I walked over, feeling a loose, stupid grin on my face, and waved the ticket right in front of her nose like a prop. "Hey, look at this," I slurred, chuckling. "Some absolute lunatic at the Rusty Nail just gave me a fake winning lottery ticket. 87 million bucks. Hilarious, right? Come on, let's pretend we're filthy rich for a night. Let's talk about what we'd buy." The moment the words left my mouth, Karen's entire demeanor shifted. The bored, sluggish look vanished instantly. Her eyes dilated. She snatched the ticket out of my hand with such force her acrylic nail scratched my palm. "Shut up, Alex," she whispered, her voice dangerously sharp. She stood up, walking rapidly over to the kitchen island, holding the paper directly under the bright pendant light. She ran her fingers across the texture, tracing the edges. "This isn't fake. Look at the hologram, Alex. Look at the watermark. Look at the paper weight." She whipped out her phone, opened the official Lottery Commission website, and pulled up the winning numbers from the previous week's drawing. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked at her phone, then at the ticket, then back at her phone. 07 14 22 35 41. Powerball 18, she read aloud, her voice trembling violently. "Alex, oh my God, it's a match. It's the exact match." "Karen, it's a joke," I groaned, kicking off my shoes and collapsing onto the sofa. "The guy was a scammer. It's a prank ticket from a gag gift shop or something. Put it down." She didn't hear a word I said. She entered a state of total, hyper-focused mania. For the next 5 hours, while I drifted in and out of a heavy, alcohol-induced sleep on the couch, Karen went down a massive rabbit hole. She occupied the dining table, surrounded by her laptop and phone, scouring Lottery Commission security protocols, reading endless forum posts about counterfeit detection, comparing high-resolution images of authentic tickets to the one in her hand, and downloading scanner apps. Every time I opened my eyes, I heard her muttering to herself, "It's real. It has to be real. This is my ticket out of this miserable life." I finally passed out completely, laughing softly at how desperate she was to believe in a fairy tale. The next morning, I woke up at 6:30 a.m. with a splitting headache and a mouth that tasted like pennies. I staggered into the kitchen to grab some aspirin. Corinne was sitting at the counter, her eyes bloodshot, drinking black coffee. The dining room table was pristine. The laptop was closed. "Hey," I croaked, rubbing my temples. "Where'd you put that fake ticket? I want to look at the barcode again. I bet there's a typo on it somewhere." Corinne's face turned into an unreadable, icy mask. She took a slow sip of her coffee, looking right through me. "It's missing," she said flatly. "What do you mean, missing?" "I mean I couldn't find it this morning," she lied, her voice completely devoid of emotion. "It must have fallen out of your pocket or got tossed in the trash. Don't worry about it. It was just a stupid fake anyway, right? Go to work, Alex. You're going to be late." I shrugged my shoulders, too exhausted and too hungover to argue. My phone was already vibrating with frantic texts from Chad about an early morning pitch meeting. I grabbed my briefcase and walked out the door, completely unaware that the woman I shared a bed with had just declared war on me. Chapter 3: The Secret Theft and Divorce Bomb. What I didn't know was that, over the next 14 days, my wife went full covert operations. She didn't lose the ticket. She had meticulously photocopied it, taken high-resolution digital scans, and hidden the original deep inside the lining of a designer makeup bag that she knew I would never touch. She called into her retail gig sick for 2 solid weeks. She wasn't sick. She was spending her days in the back rooms of downtown office buildings. She spent hours researching the legalities of anonymous lottery payouts, discovering that our state required a name to be attached to the winnings unless claimed via a blind trust. To set that up without my knowledge, she sought out a notorious local attorney named Victor Slade. Slade was a vulture. He was famous in our city for handling messy, high-profile celebrity divorces, shielding hidden assets for wealthy executives, and rolling around in the legal mud. He didn't care about ethics. He cared about billable hours and a percentage of the kill. Together, they began orchestrating a surgical strike to completely strip me of my life. And where was I? I was completely fucking oblivious, utterly buried under a mountain of corporate stress and my mother's rapid decline. By early July, Mom had lost nearly 25 pounds. Her skin looked like translucent parchment paper, her hair was completely gone, and she was trapped in a cycle of constant, agonizing nausea. I was burning the candle at both ends and in the middle. I was working 12-hour days at Technova, rushing straight to the oncology ward to sit with Mom until midnight, cleaning her apartment, managing her medications, and crawling into my own bed at 2:00 a.m. just to sleep for 4 restless hours. I was a walking corpse. I didn't notice that Corinne had stopped buying groceries or that her closet was slowly emptying out. Then came July 12, 2024, a Friday. I had just left the hospital at 10:30 p.m. The doctors had spent 3 hours trying to stabilize Mom's skyrocketing fever. I walked through my front door at 11:15 p.m., completely drained, yearning for a quiet house and a glass of water. I walked into the kitchen, flipped on the light, and stopped dead in my tracks. Taped directly to the stainless steel door of the refrigerator, right over a photo of my mother and me, was a thick manila envelope. Inside were official court documents. I read the bold letters at the top: Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. My heart dropped into my stomach. I opened the pages with shaking hands. The grounds for divorce were a laundry list of fabricated horrors, irreconcilable differences, severe emotional and psychological abuse, coercive financial control, intentional hiding of marital assets. I ran to our bedroom. It looked like a tornado had hit it. Her clothes were entirely gone. Her shoes, her vanities, her ring lights, all wiped clean. She had moved out in the middle of the day while I was at work. But it wasn't just her clothes she took. I checked our online banking app. She had liquidated our joint savings account, transferring exactly $18,500, every single penny of our emergency fund, money I had meticulously scraped together to pay for Mom's upcoming medical copays, into a private, unlisted account. She had taken our nicer, fully paid-off sedan. And worst of all, she had taken Max. Max was our rescue mutt, a scruffy, sweet golden mix I had adopted from a shelter 3 years prior. He was my shadow, my comfort after a brutal day at the hospital. She didn't even like the dog. She used him as a prop for her dog mom aesthetic posts, but she took him anyway, purely out of spite. And of course, she took the winning lottery ticket. Because of Victor Slade's backroom connections and a heavily greased legal wheel. The initial emergency hearing was set at a terrifyingly fast pace. Less than a week later, I found myself standing in a sterile, fluorescent-lit courtroom, completely disoriented, representing myself because I couldn't afford a retainer fee for a high-end family lawyer. Victor Slade stood at the podium, looking immaculate in a three-piece charcoal suit, smelling of arrogance. Karen sat next to him, wearing a conservative, high-necked black dress, dabbing fake tears from her eyes with a silk tissue. "Your Honor," Slade bellowed, his voice echoing off the mahogany walls. "My client has been subjected to years of calculated emotional imprisonment. Mr. Thompson is a controlling, unstable individual who is currently attempting to perpetrate a massive financial fraud upon this court. We have definitive reason to believe the respondent is actively hiding a massive, multi-million-dollar windfall. Specifically, a winning multi-state mega jackpot ticket worth $87 million in an attempt to freeze my client out of her rightful marital share." I stepped up to my microphone, my voice shaking with a volatile mixture of rage and disbelief. "Your Honor, this is an absolute circus. It's a prank ticket. I found a drunk guy at a dive bar named the Rusty Nail who gave me a joke prop. I told my wife explicitly that night that it was fake. I have the text messages right here on my phone to prove it." I submitted printouts of my texts to Karen from that night, where I literally wrote, "Hey babe, got a fake winning ticket from some drunk guy. We can pretend we're rich lol." Slade didn't even blink. He turned to the judge with a predatory smirk. "Your Honor, this is a classic, textbook example of psychological gaslighting. The respondent intentionally planted a false narrative via text message to create a paper trail, laying the groundwork to deceive my client and hoard the wealth for himself once he filed for divorce. It is a cynical, premeditated lie." Then Karen took the stand. She delivered a performance that deserved an Academy Award. She wept softly into the microphone, her voice trembling as she painted a picture of a domestic horror show. He mocked my dreams every single day," she sobbed, looking pitifully at the judge. "He controlled all the finances. He isolated me from my supportive friends, calling them a gold digger crew. And when he brought that ticket home, he looked me dead in the eyes and told me if I ever told anyone about it, he would make sure I ended up with nothing. I was terrified for my life, Your Honor. I had to escape." The judge, a hardened, cynical older woman who looked like she had seen 1,000 lying husbands, frowned deeply at me. She slammed her gavel down, issuing a temporary order freezing all my personal accounts, demanding full financial disclosure, and scheduling a full trial. I walked out of that courtroom completely ruined, with $20 left in my wallet and a burning fire in my chest. Chapter 4. The Cheating Reveal, Workplace Sabotage, and First Fights. If I thought the divorce bomb was the peak of the trauma, the universe quickly reminded me that I was only on Chapter 4 of my personal descent into hell. Week 3 of our separation arrived, and Karen's social media presence exploded. She didn't just return to Instagram and TikTok. She came back with an aggressive, high-production vengeance. Suddenly, her stories weren't filmed in her mom's basement or a cheap apartment. They were filmed in 5-star luxury resorts, high-end rooftop lounges, and the passenger seat of a brand-new Porsche. And then came the face reveal of her new sponsor. I was sitting in my cubicle at Technova, trying to force myself to make cold calls, when my phone buzzed with an alert from a burner account I used to monitor her public page. I tapped the story. It was a video of Karen clinking crystal champagne flutes on a private balcony overlooking the city skyline. The camera panned over to the man standing next to her, his arm wrapped tightly around her waist, a smug, bronzed grin plastered across his face. It was Mark Chad Harrington, my boss. The air left my lungs. My stomach violently churned. I sat there staring at the screen, paralyzed. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together with sickening clarity. They hadn't just met. A few days later, Chad's soon-to-be ex-wife, a fierce woman named Victoria who had discovered the affair via a private investigator, emailed me a massive, unredacted file of leaked text messages and hotel receipts. Turns out, Karen and Chad had been hooking up for 7 solid months. They were sneaking into luxury boutique hotels during the exact nights I was sitting in the oncology ward holding my mother's hand while she wept from chemo pains. I found texts from Karen to Chad saying, "Can't wait until we can finally claim this money and get free of that bald, broke loser." Chad had been using his corporate position to manipulate my schedule, intentionally assigning me late-night accounts and distant territory leads to keep me away from home so he could visit my wife. But Chad wasn't done destroying my life. Now that the affair was out in the open, he needed me gone from Technova to protect his own corporate standing and prevent a hostile work environment lawsuit. The very next morning, I walked into the office, my eyes bloodshot, my fists clenched. Before I could even storm into Chad's office, I was intercepted by 2 stern-faced human resources representatives and escorted into a private conference room. Chad had launched a preemptive, highly coordinated strike. Using inside information Karen had given him about my schedule, he had filed a formal, anonymous corporate complaint against me for systemic time theft. He had compiled security badge logs showing times I had slipped away for 45 minutes during lunch to drop off fresh clothes or soup for my mother at the hospital, framing it as an intentional, fraudulent manipulation of company hours. Pending a full internal compliance investigation into corporate fraud, Mr. Thompson, the HR director said coldly, you are officially suspended without pay, effective immediately. Hand over your badge and your laptop. My world shattered. My promotion was frozen instantly. The $250,000 base salary, the health care, the stability, evaporated into thin air. And the bills didn't care about my suspension. 2 days later, I received a certified letter from my mother's hospital billing department. Her oncology team had recommended a cutting-edge, targeted genetic therapy that represented her absolute best chance at long-term remission. The cost, $42,000 per round. Because of my suspension and the frozen accounts from the divorce court, her secondary insurance rejected the prior authorization. I was staring down a financial firing squad, and my mother's life was the target. The pressure cooker finally exploded in late August on the concrete steps of the county courthouse. We had just finished a brutal, agonizing preliminary asset hearing where Victor Slade had successfully argued to keep our joint savings frozen. I walked out of the heavy glass doors into the sweltering afternoon heat, my blood boiling. There stood Karen on the courthouse plaza, surrounded by a small entourage. She was dressed head to toe in brand new designer gear, a Gucci handbag slung over her shoulder, oversized Chanel sunglasses covering her eyes. Her credit card debt was clearly mounting, fueled by the delusional expectation of an impending $87 million payout. She saw me and a smug, mocking smirk spread across her face. "Hey Alex," she called out, her voice dripping with condescension. "How's the job hunt going? Oh wait, I forgot. You're a broke, unemployed loser now." Something snapped deep inside me. The weeks of sleeping on hospital chairs, the betrayal, the corporate sabotage, the terrifying medical bills, it all rushed to the surface in a wave of pure, unadulterated rage. I marched down the steps, stopping inches from her face. "Give me the fucking ticket back, Karen," I growled, my voice shaking with fury. "Give me the ticket, give me my $18,000 back, and give me my fucking dog. You know damn well that ticket is a worthless piece of paper. You are ruining my mother's life for a fucking lie." Karen threw her head back and laughed, a shrill, mocking sound that echoed off the concrete. "It's my ticket now, per the legal settlement, you pathetic piece of shit. Victor is going to take everything you have left. You're going to watch your little empire burn to the ground." Suddenly, a large, beefy man stepped between us. It was one of Chad's frequent country club golf buddies, a meathead named Brad who was acting as her self-appointed bodyguard for the day. He wore a tight polo shirt and reeked of entitlement. "Back the fuck up, buddy," Brad barked, slamming a heavy hand directly into my chest. Shoving me backward down the concrete steps. "She told you to move along. Get your broke ass out of here." The physical contact was the final spark. I didn't think, I just reacted. I lunged forward, throwing a hard, desperate right hook that caught Brad squarely on his jaw. His head snapped back, his sunglasses flying off and shattering against the stone steps. "Holy shit," Karen screamed, scrambling backward. "He's attacking us, he's insane." Brad roared like a wounded bull, lunging at me. Punches flew wildly. We grabbed each other's collars, crashing down onto the concrete plaza in a chaotic, violent tangle of limbs. I managed to land a solid punch to his eye, but he countered with a brutal left hook that split my upper lip wide open, sending a spray of blood across my shirt. We wrestled furiously, knocking over a metal trash can, barked curses echoing through the plaza. "Stop it, call the cops," Karen shrieked, whipping out her phone to record the chaos rather than stop it. Within 90 seconds, 3 heavily armed courthouse security sheriffs tackled us both to the ground, grinding my face into the hot concrete, pulling my arms violently behind my back, and clicking heavy steel handcuffs onto my wrists. I spent the next 14 hours sitting in a cold, concrete holding cell, the metallic taste of blood drying in my mouth, staring at the ceiling. I was booked for misdemeanor assault and disturbing the peace. By the time I was released on a signature bond the next morning, Karen had already uploaded my disheveled, bloody mugshot to every single one of her social media platforms. The caption read, "See what I finally escaped. A violent, unhinged monster who couldn't handle a successful woman building her own abundance. Ladies, look for the warning signs. Survivor, new beginnings, truth." But the physical damage wasn't the worst part. My mother, sitting alone in her hospital bed, had turned on the local morning news. A sensationalist local news segment had picked up the courthouse brawl, flashing my mugshot across the screen. When she saw her only son in handcuffs, her fragile body couldn't handle the shock. Her blood pressure spiked into a catastrophic zone. Her heart entered a lethal arrhythmia. She coded right there in the room. The emergency alarm sounded. A swarm of doctors and nurses rushed in with a crash cart, ripping open her gown and slamming the defibrillator paddles against her frail chest. They managed to revive her, forcing her heart back into a rhythm, but her primary oncologist called me into his office the moment I arrived at the hospital, still wearing my blood-stained clothes from jail. "Alex," the doctor said, his expression grim and dead serious. "Her body is clinging to life by a thread. This level of acute psychological stress is literally lethal to her right now. If her blood pressure spikes like that again, her heart will fail permanently. You need to keep this chaos away from her room or it will bury her." Chapter 5. The Lawsuit Avalanche and Hospital Wars. The autumn of 2024 turned into a relentless, exhausting war of attrition. The divorce didn't just drag, it turned into a multi-front legal quagmire. We went through 9 separate, agonizing hearings in front of 3 different family court judges. Victor Slade was a master of procedural terrorism, filing continuous motions for emergency discovery, demanding I produce bank statements dating back to my high school years, and constantly trying to force me to produce the physical location of the original lottery ticket or pay an equivalent financial value based on its projected worth. I knew I needed definitive, unassailable proof to end this insanity. I took the last $2,000 I had to my name, money I raised by selling my wedding band and my television to a pawn shop, and hired a greasy, fast-talking private investigator named Mick to track down Slick Rick, the Hawaiian shirt-wearing lunatic from the Rusty Nail. It took Mick 3 weeks of digging through low-level criminal networks, but he finally found him. Rick wasn't a millionaire lottery winner. His real name was Richard Higgins, and he was currently sitting in a county jail cell 3 counties over, awaiting trial for felony wire fraud, check forgery, and passing counterfeit currency. Mick secured a formal, notarized affidavit from Higgins. In the document, Rick explicitly admitted under penalty of perjury that the ticket he had handed me was a high-quality, professional prop he had purchased in bulk from an underground dark web printing operation in Eastern Europe, which he used to trick drunk marks at bars into buying him expensive drinks and loans. I felt a massive wave of relief. I marched into the next court hearing and proudly submitted the certified affidavit to the judge, confident that the case would be dismissed instantly. The judge looked at the paper, sighed heavily, rubbed her temples, and tossed it onto her stack of folders. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice entirely devoid of sympathy, "while this affidavit is intriguing, it does not constitute conclusive physical evidence regarding the specific status of the asset currently held by your wife. Until a federal or state regulatory body issues an official, final determination on the authenticity of the specific ticket in question, this court must treat it as a disputed marital asset subject to potential valuation and division." Motion denied. I wanted to scream. The legal system was completely blind to common sense. Emboldened by the judge's indecision, Karen went on a massive public relations offensive. She contacted a predatory local investigative news reporter, pitching herself as the ultimate underdog. Within days, a headline flashed across the local media channels: "Local woman HITS multi-million mega jackpot amidst messy, abusive divorce battle." They aired an 8-minute television interview where Karen sat in a softly lit studio, wearing a pristine cream sweater, weeping on cue about the years of financial terrorism she suffered under my roof, and how this lottery win was God's divine justice to liberate her. To make matters worse, her gold digger entourage helped her set up a verified GoFundMe campaign titled "Legal Fees for a Brave Survivor Fighting Corporate Asset Hiding." The viral news story drove immense traffic to the page. Within 2 weeks, thousands of gullible online suckers poked their credit cards into the site, raking in a staggering $27,000 in pure cash directly into her pocket, funding her luxurious lifestyle and keeping Slade's legal machine fully greased. Meanwhile, back at Technova, the corporate compliance investigation into my time theft finally concluded. The investigators reviewed my digital call logs, discovered that I had actually exceeded my sales quotas by 140% while working remotely from the hospital, and realized that Chad had completely fabricated and manipulated the security logs to clear his own path. My suspension was officially lifted, and I was returned to active duty. However, Chad wasn't about to let me recover. He couldn't fire me without facing a wrongful termination suit, so he chose to destroy me internally. He reassigned my lucrative, warm leads to his cronies, transferred me to a dead-end, icy territory in the outer suburbs, and spent every corporate meeting bad-mouthing my character to the executive VP board. I didn't break. I didn't complain. I put my head down and worked grueling, exhausting double shifts. I made cold calls from my car, skipped lunches, and closed tiny, difficult deals that everyone else had abandoned. What Chad didn't realize was that my sheer, desperate grit had caught the eye of the upper-level corporate management team, specifically the senior VP of global sales, a sharp, no-nonsense executive who was quietly keeping tabs on my performance metrics through the back end of the system. Then came the darkest day of the entire saga, Hospital Incident 2. It was a bleak Tuesday afternoon in October. My mother had just been rolled back into her oncology room after a painful 3-hour bone marrow biopsy. She was weak, pale, and drifting in and out of consciousness under heavy sedation. I was sitting beside her, holding her frail hand, when the heavy wooden door to her room was violently slammed open. In marched Karen, flanked by Victor Slade and two burly, intimidating men dressed in cheap suits who looked like private process servers. Karen was holding a clipboard, her face contorted into a mask of pure greed. "Sign the fucking papers, Alex," Karen hissed, marching right up to the foot of my mother's bed. Victor drafted an expedited asset division waiver. "Sign over your rights to the ticket, or we are going to subpoena your mother's medical records and freeze her hospital trust fund by tomorrow morning." I stood up so fast my chair flipped over backward, crashing against the wall. "Are you fucking insane?" I roared, my voice shaking with a terrifying rage. "Get the fuck out of this room. Look at her. She can barely breathe. Get out before I throw you out." "Don't you raise your voice to my client, Mr. Thompson," Slade countered, stepping forward, thrusting a legal document into my face. "We have an emergency court order allowing us to serve these papers." "I don't give a flying fuck about your order," I screamed, entirely out of control. I grabbed Slade by his expensive silk tie, wrenching him backward away from the bed. One of Karen's hired muscle guys lunged forward, grabbing me by my shoulders and slamming me into the metal IV poles. The heavy metal poles crashed to the linoleum floor with a deafening metallic clatter, tearing the IV lines out of my mother's arm. A stream of dark blood began to pool on her white sheets. The medical monitors attached to my mom began to emit a shrill, terrifying alarm as her heart rate skyrocketed. Nurses began screaming down the hallway. "Get him off her," Karen yelled, enjoying the absolute chaos she had unleashed. We wrestled furiously in the narrow space between the bed and the window, throwing wild punches, knocking over medication trays, and shattering a plastic wash basin. Within 30 seconds, 4 heavy, armed hospital security guards stormed into the room, tackling me, Slade, and the hired muscle to the floor in a massive, violent heap of bodies. The head floor nurse stood over us, her face white with fury. "Get every single one of them out of this hospital right now. I don't care who they are. They are a threat to our patients." Because I was a participant in the physical altercation inside a critical care ward, the hospital administration issued an immediate, emergency 48-hour security ban against me. I was forcibly escorted out of the building by armed guards, unable to see my own mother. As I stood on the sidewalk in the cold rain, completely shattered, my phone buzzed. It was a text from the head nurse, who had held my mom's hand after the chaos subsided. She sent me a voice note from my mother. I tapped play, holding the phone to my ear as tears streamed down my face. My mom's frail, trembling voice came through the speaker, muffled by an oxygen mask. "Alex, my sweet boy, please just let her have it. Give her whatever she wants, son. I don't care about the money. I just want peace before I go." Chapter 6. The Fake Reveal, Financial Apocalypse, and Karen's Downfall. November 2024. The wheels of cosmic justice grind slowly, but when they finally turn, they crush everything in their path. The Multi-State Lottery Commission had spent months conducting a highly confidential, exhaustive forensic investigation into the ticket Karen had attempted to claim via Victor Slade's blind trust. Because of the high profile of the case and the intense local news coverage, they decided to hold a live, televised press conference to announce their findings. I sat in my apartment, staring at the television screen. Karen sat in the front row of the press room, surrounded by her gold digger crew, flashing a confident, smug smile at the cameras. The director of the State Lottery Commission stepped up to the podium, clearing his throat. "Good morning," the director said, his voice flat and authoritative. "Regarding the claims submitted by the legal representatives of a blind trust linked to a Ms. Karen Thompson, We have completed our final forensic analysis. The ticket in question matches the winning numbers for the $87 million jackpot drawn in June. However, the director paused, pulling a high-resolution image onto the digital display screen behind him. Our forensic laboratory has identified that this document is a highly sophisticated, multi-layered counterfeit. It utilizes illicit thermal paper stocks and an engineered holographic overlay that does not match the strict proprietary manufacturing standards of the United States Treasury or state vendors. The barcode contains an identical structural string copied from a bulk prop batch originating from an illegal online print shop. In short, the ticket is entirely fake. No payout will be issued. Furthermore, we have forwarded our investigation to the state police and federal prosecutors for potential criminal fraud and attempted theft charges. The camera cut instantly to Karen. The transformation was absolute gold. Her jaw dropped completely open. The color drained from her face, leaving her a pasty, sickly white. She jumped to her feet, knocking her expensive chair backward. "No, that's a lie," she shrieked, her voice cracking frantically on live television. "My husband forged that evidence. He switched the tickets. It's real. I have the money. I already spent the money." Oh, and did she spend it? Believing she was a definitive multimillionaire, Karen had gone on a terrifying, six-digit spending spree over the previous 5 months. She had taken out predatory high-interest bridge loans, opened a dozen corporate lines of credit under Victor Slade's guidance, leased a luxury downtown penthouse condo, and purchased a fleet of high-end vehicles. Her total accumulated debt was a staggering $487,000. Her financial world collapsed into a black hole within 24 hours. The banks froze her credit lines immediately. The repo men arrived at her luxury condo by midnight, hooking her Porsche to the back of a flatbed truck while she screamed curses on the sidewalk in her bathrobe. Her landlords issued a 3-day eviction notice for the penthouse. And Chad, the moment the word counterfeit left the lottery director's mouth, Chad vanished like a ghost. He didn't just dump her. He completely blocked her number, locked her out of his apartment, and sent a formal text through his attorney stating that their relationship was permanently terminated. Why? Because Chad was currently facing his own absolute destruction. His fierce, wealthy wife, Victoria, had filed for a scorched-earth divorce, utilizing the detailed text logs of his affair with Karen as primary evidence of extreme marital misconduct. Victoria's father was the primary majority shareholder on Technova's executive board. By late November, Chad was fired from his position, stripped of his stock options, and blacklisted from the entire tech sales industry. To save his own skin, Chad launched a massive lawsuit against Karen, suing her for intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraudulent misrepresentation, and lost corporate wages, claiming she had enticed him into the affair under the false pretense of a massive financial windfall. The lawsuits multiplied like cockroaches. Within 3 months, Karen was drowning in a tidal wave of litigation. Chad's wealthy ex-wife sued Karen for alienation of affection. The State Lottery Commission sent formal warnings regarding ongoing criminal intent investigations. A massive syndicate of corporate creditors filed multiple collection lawsuits for the $487,000 in unpaid luxury loans. Slick Rick, having been released from county jail on probation, hired a pro bono lawyer and sued Karen for defamation, claiming she had ruined his reputation on local television by calling him a co-conspirator in an abusive domestic asset heist. And then came my counterassault. I hired a brilliant, shark-like civil attorney named Sarah, who happened to be the close friend of my mother's wonderful oncology nurse. We filed a massive, multi-million-dollar civil countersuit against Karen and Victor Slade for civil theft of the $18,500, malicious defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, utilizing my mother's volatile medical records and code blue logs as definitive physical evidence of the damage they had caused. The courtroom drama reached its absolute peak during a mandatory hearing in February 2025. Karen showed up looking completely unhinged. Her blonde hair was a matted mess, her clothes were wrinkled, and her eyes were wild. She didn't have Victor Slade anymore. Slade had dropped her as a client the second her funds dried up, and she was stuck with a public defender who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. During my attorney's opening statement, Karen completely lost her mind. She jumped out of her chair, screaming at the top of her lungs, pointing a trembling finger at the judge's bench. "This is all his fault," she shrieked, tears streaming down her face, her voice hoarse and cracking. "Alex planned this whole thing. He knew the ticket was fake. He set me up to destroy my life. He's the monster. Judge, look at him. He's laughing at me." The judge slammed her gavel repeatedly, her face dark with anger. "Ms. Thompson, one more outburst from you, and I will hold you in immediate criminal contempt of court and have the bailiffs remove you to the county jail. Sit down and shut your mouth." Outside the courthouse, the media circus had turned into a full-blown riot. A predatory local tabloid reporter cornered Karen's trashy cousin in the lobby, shouting questions about her fraudulent GoFundMe campaign. Karen's cousin turned around and threw a hard, wild punch right into the reporter's camera lens, shattering the equipment and triggering a massive, chaotic brawl with courthouse security that went instantly viral on TikTok. When the dust finally settled, the victory was absolute. The judge ruled completely in my favor, dismissing all of Karen's fabricated abuse claims with prejudice. I was awarded a massive civil judgment, full repayment of the stolen $18,500, a $185,000 punitive damage settlement for emotional distress, and a complete, absolute waiver of any potential marital property claims. Even better, back in December, Technova's upper-level executive management had finished their complete restructuring. They fired Chad's remaining cronies, looked at my unmatched sales data, and recognized how flawlessly I had maintained my professionalism throughout a massive, highly public scandal without cracking under pressure. They didn't just give me the regional director promotion. They threw in an additional retroactive bonus package. I was now clearing a $250,000 base salary, with commissions pushing me past $450,000, along with a top-tier executive health insurance plan that completely covered every single cent of my mother's upcoming experimental cancer care. Chapter 7: The Desperate Crawlback and Mid-Stuff Offers. By March 2025, Karen was completely obliterated. She was officially declared bankrupt, evicted from every apartment she tried to rent, and was forced to pack her remaining plastic bags and move into her mother's damp, unfinished basement in a small town 3 states away. Her digital footprint was permanently toxic. The hashtag Karen Lottery scam trended nationwide, completely ruining any hope she ever had of an influencer career. Her own extended family disowned her, refusing to answer her phone calls except for mandatory, guilt-ridden holiday visits. And that's when the desperate crawlback campaign began. I was sitting in my brand-new sunlit townhouse, which I had just purchased using my massive promotion bonus, when my phone buzzed at 3:14 a.m. I picked it up. It was a long, frantic block of text from an unlisted number. "Alex, please don't block me," the text read. "I'm sitting here crying in the dark. I was so manipulated, honey. Chad gaslit me into everything. He threatened me, Alex. The ticket looked so incredibly real, I just lost my mind because I wanted a better life for us. I still love you so much. I think about our string-light wedding every single night. Can we please just talk? Forgive me." I didn't even type a response. I just took a screenshot from my legal records and blocked the number. 2 weeks later, she escalated. I walked out of my front door at 7:30 a.m. to head to the office. It was pouring rain. There stood Karen, huddled under my porch awning. She looked terrible. She had lost weight in an unhealthy way. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by a stained, oversized gray hoodie, and she was weeping hysterically. The moment she saw me, she dropped to her knees on the wet concrete, grabbing the hem of my trousers. "Alex, please just listen to me for 1 minute," she sobbed, her hands shaking violently. "I have nothing left. They're going to jail me for the debt. I'll do anything, Alex. Literally anything you want. Remember how we used to have that boring schedule? I know I always said no to all that adventurous stuff before, but I'll do it now. Mid-stuff, anal roleplay, whatever crazy stuff you want every single night. I won't complain ever again. Just take me back. Your mother needs her daughter-in-law to take care of her." I stood there looking down at her, and suddenly a wave of absolute amusement washed over me. I didn't get angry. I didn't get scared. I just burst into a loud, booming laugh. I laughed so hard my ribs ached. I pulled out my phone, flipped on the video camera, which is fully legal in my one-party consent state, and recorded her kneeling in the rain while I laughed for 10 straight minutes. "Get professional therapy, Karen," I said coldly, stepping around her shivering body, getting into my corporate vehicle and driving away. But her desperation turned highly dangerous. A month later, she attempted her third strategy, a faked pregnancy. She sent a series of high-resolution ultrasound pictures to my corporate email account, claiming she was pregnant with my child from a frantic encounter right before she filed for divorce. The timeline was completely fraudulent, and within 48 hours, my attorney forced her medical clinic to release the records, confirming she had purchased a photoshopped digital ultrasound file from a sketchy dark web forum for $20. When that failed, she targeted my new girlfriend, Sarah. Sarah was my mother's primary oncology nurse. She was an absolute angel, kind, incredibly stable, fiercely intelligent, and she had actually stood by my side throughout the worst months of my mother's treatments without ever asking for a single thing in return. Karen began a vicious cyber harassment campaign against Sarah. She created over 50 fake Instagram profiles, sending horrifying, threatening direct messages to Sarah's personal page, calling her a home-wrecking whore, and leaving fake, defamatory reviews on the hospital's public rating boards trying to get Sarah fired from her nursing position. Our legal team traced the IP addresses directly back to her mother's basement, and a judge slapped her with a severe, high-level harassment citation. The final, psychotic break occurred in late 2025. Karen drove 3 states back to our old town. She utilized an old, copied key to break into my mother's old house, which we had already sold to fund the new townhouse. She sneaked into the kitchen in the middle of the night and left a massive, home-cooked reconciliation meal on the counter, a large tray of lasagna. When the new owners discovered the break-in and called the police, a forensic team analyzed the food. The lasagna was heavily laced with an excessive, toxic dose of expired prescription laxatives and industrial cleaning chemicals. The police issued an immediate federal warrant for her arrest, and a judge signed an absolute lifetime protection restraining order. If Karen steps within 500 feet of me, Sarah, or my mother, she faces an immediate 5-year mandatory minimum prison sentence. My mom, who was now sitting comfortably in a plush leather recliner in my new living room, completely in partial remission with 0 cancer markers thanks to her premium treatments and a life entirely free of chaos, laughed softly when she heard the news. "Well, son," my mom said, taking a sip of tea, "that crazy girl almost buried me twice. Good riddance to absolute trash." Chapter 8. Side stories, flashbacks, and endless twists. Looking back from the safety of my new life, the absolute depth of her delusion is almost comical. I often think back to our honeymoon in 2019. I had saved up for a year to take her to a beautiful, 4-star all-inclusive resort in Jamaica. The entire trip was a nightmare. Karen spent all 7 days throwing massive tantrums at the hotel staff because our room didn't have a 5-star premium celebrity view, refusing to leave her lounge chair because the sand was too hot for her aesthetic, and screaming at a teenage waiter until he cried because her tropical drink didn't have a perfectly symmetrical pineapple wedge for her Instagram feed. The signs were always there. I was just blind. The fallout of her explosion damaged everyone around her. My childhood best friend, Mike, had stepped up to testify on my behalf during the asset hearings, presenting records of how much money I had personally invested into her failing influencer brand. To stop him, Karen had actually tried to corporate spy on Mike, sneaking into his office and trying to aggressively seduce him in a dark parking lot to create fake blackmail material to ruin his marriage. Mike recorded the entire encounter on his dashcam, which resulted in his own wife leaving him for a month out of sheer stress before they finally reconciled and turned the footage over to the police. Even Karen's own inner circle turned into a pack of wolves. Her former best friend and digital manager, a girl named Tiffany who had helped her hide the ticket initially, realized Karen was completely broke. To recoup her lost management fees, Tiffany stole Karen's private diary and cell phone hard drive, selling the raw, unedited text messages, affair photos, and manic lottery rants to a national tabloid magazine for a massive cash payout. But out of all the darkness, beautiful things began to grow. My mother's oncology support group became a massive, highly public local success story. A local journalist wrote a beautiful, front-page feature article about my mother's resilience, her battle with cancer, and how our family survived a highly publicized campaign of malicious greed. The story touched thousands of people. Karen actually tried to infiltrate the private online support group using a fake name to post hateful comments about my mom, but the automated system detected her IP address and permanently banned her within minutes. My career at Technova soared to astronomical heights. Free from the constant, draining negative vacuum of my marriage, I was focused, sharp, and unstoppable. In late 2025, I officially closed a massive, multi-year $4.2 million corporate infrastructure deal, the largest single-account sale in the history of the company. The executive board threw a massive celebration party in my honor, and my performance bonuses rolled in like a tidal wave. For the first time in my life, money wasn't a source of terror. I bought a specialized luxury medical vehicle and took my mother on a gentle, beautiful 2-week cruise through the Caribbean. She had her smile back. And Karen, her current status is the ultimate definition of poetic justice. She was forced to take a low-paying, minimum-wage retail position at a discount dollar store in her mom's town. 2 months ago, a customer recognized her from the viral news stories and began filming her on a phone. Karen lost her mind, throwing a basket of plastic products at the customer and screaming a long, manic rant about how she was destined for multi-million-dollar abundance and that everyone else was a low-vibrational peasant. She was fired on the spot by her manager. Shortly after, GoFundMe permanently banned her profile for life, freezing the remaining campaign funds and issuing full refunds to all the suckers she had deceived, citing a strict violation of their fraudulent misrepresentation policies. The absolute final confrontation happened just a few weeks ago, in April 2026. I walked out of my high-end gym in the city, carrying my duffel bag, feeling healthy, strong, and completely at peace. I walked toward my vehicle when a figure stepped out from behind a concrete pillar in the parking structure. It was Karen. She looked completely broken down by life. She was wearing cheap, tattered clothes, her face was gaunt, and she looked 10 years older than her actual age. She didn't approach me aggressively. She stood there, her arms crossed, looking at me with a desperate, pathetic pleading in her eyes. "Alex," she whispered, her voice completely hollow. "I lost everything. I lost my apartment, my credit, my friends, my reputation. I am living in a basement working for pennies, all because of that stupid, cursed fake ticket, but we can still rebuild, can't we? We know each other better than anyone. I can change, Alex. I'll do that mid stuff every single night. I'll be whatever you want me to be. Just save me." I stopped, looking at her for a long, quiet moment. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel amusement. I just felt a profound, deep sense of pity for a creature who had destroyed her entire existence for a piece of thermal paper. "You didn't lose everything because of a fake ticket, Karen," I said flatly, my voice echoing in the quiet garage. "You lost everything because of your own monstrous, unchecked greed. Goodbye." I got into my car, started the engine, and drove away, watching her figure grow smaller and smaller in my rearview mirror until she completely vanished into the dark. Reddit updates, because this saga never ends. Update 1, May 2026. I am writing this from the back patio of my townhouse. I have the best news of my entire life. My mom's latest comprehensive oncology markers just came back from the lab. She is officially 100% cancer-free. The targeted treatments worked completely. To celebrate, Sarah and I spent the weekend looking at engagement rings. I think I'm going to pop the question next month on a trip to Hawaii. Meanwhile, Karen's new TikTok account, where she posts bizarre, unhinged conspiracy rants about how the state lottery commission is run by shadow syndicates who steal tickets from independent women, just got completely banned for violating community guidelines. My anonymous story post on Reddit just cleared 2.3 million views. The internet completely agrees she is a monster. Update 2. The $185,000 punitive civil settlement money finally cleared my attorney's escrow account last week. Sarah, my mom, and I sat down to discuss what to do with it. We decided we didn't want a single penny of that toxic money in our personal accounts. We officially used the entire sum to launch a verified, nonprofit medical foundation named Linda's Hope. The fund has already fully paid off the outstanding cancer therapy debts for 12 separate, struggling single parents in our local community who were facing eviction due to medical bills. Karen's public defender called my lawyer yesterday, begging for a mediation conference to reduce her ongoing monthly restitution payments because she can't afford groceries. My lawyer's response: a single word: denied. Update 3. The cosmic karma continues to deliver. Chad's ex-wife, Victoria, sent a massive, high-end gourmet gift basket directly to my office corporate headquarters yesterday. It contained a bottle of vintage champagne and a beautifully handwritten note thanking me for providing the definitive legal documentation that helped her strip Chad of his remaining personal assets in their divorce settlement. On a hilarious note, Karen actually attempted to register and sneak into my company's annual corporate regional alumni gala last weekend, using a fake ticket printout and a stolen name badge. She didn't even make it past the lobby doors. High-end corporate security immediately identified her from her mugshot, tackled her to the carpet, and escorted her out in handcuffs for criminal trespass. Update 4. I have officially changed my personal phone number for the 4th time, scrubbed my remaining public social media presence, and moved into a beautiful, secure gated community to ensure absolute permanent peace for my family. Life is incredibly good. I've been going to weekly therapy sessions for a year now, and I have finally processed the trauma of the betrayal. I am surrounded by genuine love, an incredible career, and a healthy family. If your spouse ever brings home a winning lottery ticket and their first instinct isn't to hug you and celebrate together, run as fast as your legs can carry you. Final mega update. This is the absolute peak of the madness. 2 days ago, my civil attorney informed me that 3 major Hollywood production companies have officially approached our legal team, shopping the rights to turn this entire Reddit saga into a true crime limited streaming television series. This morning, I checked the inbox of a dead, old throwaway email account I hadn't opened in 6 months. There was a single, recent email from an unlisted, newly created address. It was from Karen. The subject line was blank. The body of the email read, "I watched your news story. I know it was completely fake now, Alex. I am starving, please." I didn't blink. I didn't feel a thing. I hovered my mouse over the screen, clicked the delete button, and permanently blocked the address. Our story is officially over, and I have finally won the real jackpot.